Hi, this is Tommaso from Fleshgod Apocalypse, and you're listening to Moshpit on Scene.
So, Tommaso Riccardi is the vocalist and rhythm guitarist of the Italian orchestral death metal band Fleshgod Apocalypse. Their fourth album, King, will be released on February 5th, and they'll be touring North America and Europe. Tommaso, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Now, talking about King, how do these songs come about? Because I know there's various ways you might get the ideas about how to start it, but how do you manage to put all the pieces together? Because there's a lot going on there.
Well, yeah, that's true, and that's why also every time we work on a new album, it's always like the most stressful time in our job, because there's a lot of things to take care about. But at this point, for which regards especially the composition and arrangement process, we have the past experience that is really helping us, because at this point it's after Agony and Labyrinth, this is actually the third album in which we are working with full orchestrations on the songs. So even if, of course, we had the stress before starting of also asking ourselves, okay, what are we going to do now? Because it's of course it's normally that it's easy to repeat yourself when you're defining your style. But in the meantime, we had the feeling that we could actually find a good balance between all the elements that we've been experimenting during these years. So in the end, the experience really won, and I really think that in this case, I mean, we're very satisfied about the result, because I really think that King is maybe the most mature album that we have out until now, because actually this balance that we've been looking for is there, in my opinion. So we're really happy about it.
Now, this album was mixed and mastered at Jens Borgren's Fascination Street Studios. Why did you choose him, and how do you feel that affected the sound of the album compared to your previous efforts?
Well, the choice has been, mainly, of course, based on his previous works. I mean, even this year, for example, we've been listening a lot to some works of him, and between those, because we are also a big fan of the band, we've been listening a lot to Last Symphony X album. And even looking back to all the works he did, we really thought that he could be one of the candidates for to work with us for one of our albums, because we really love what he did, simply. And it was, of course, a big challenge for us, especially in the mood in which we were facing this new thing, because it was the first time that we were working with someone, not from Italy, and that was not already a friend of ours. So, of course, you got a lot of questions, and you ask yourself, okay, how is it going to be? Do we have to work differently or what? So we tried to be prepared for that, and to do all the things right to make him find himself comfortable with the job that he had to do. But in the end, that's the great thing when you work with someone who is really a professional. That you obviously everything is much more smooth than what you could imagine. So what happened is just that he's been very professional, and the great thing, I believe, is that besides doing a great job on the sound, of which we are extremely satisfied, I have to say, he's been also great in interpretation of the music, because I think that Jens is not just a sound engineer, but actually a producer, someone who really knows what it means to understand the music and work on the sound and on the dynamics in the songs in a way that actually reflects the ideas of the musician. So that's very important, because in the end, I think that this choice really affected the results in a very, very positive way. And I believe that really helped also to find the right balance in the music beside the composition and arrangement. And also, I have to say, it was also the first time that we've been working on the recordings with Marco Mastrobuono at Kick Studios, also in Rome. And also, this experience was new for us. We've been friends in a long time. He's the bass player from Our Penance, so we obviously know each other. But we never worked with him on that side, in the studio. And he's been great too. So between the recordings and mixing and mastering it with Jens Bogren, I really think that we finally have an album that has, that is really clear. You can get everything, but still there's a lot of power there and a lot of personality.
Now, in terms of the actual concept of the album, I've got a quote from about what you say the album's about. An old world that's slowly coming to an end. The king himself is, in a way, the only positive character of the whole story. Now, why did you choose a king as a positive character, given that I think in the modern world, people sort of often associate kind of kings with corruption, with having too much power and misusing that? Why did you put the king as a good character in this story?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, because it is a character that indeed, for the image that has the character, is actually, full of contrast, I would say. But it depends on the way you see it. Because, indeed, all the other characters of the court in the story are actually corrupt people and jealous people and, greedy people. So they represent all these characteristics that sometimes are in general in human beings and sometimes are in the, let's say, powerful people. But the king, I would say two things. The first one is that he is the only positive character in the meaning that he has positive aspects. But of course the king doesn't represent someone who is perfect. Because with positivity we also want to talk about the fact that being responsible and taking your own responsibility sometimes also means to be able to bear the burden of hurting someone, because you cannot do the right thing without hurting someone. It always happens. It's just nature, I guess. But in the meantime, it's also a very symbolic king, and we wanted to use this image maybe in a more fairy tale, let's say, way for the king, because it is true that indeed such a powerful person is often seen as a negative character, but in this case we are trying to bring the image of a king that is like the king, really the king of fairy tales, so someone who just represents the I would say the brave part that is inside ourselves. So this is there is a metaphor, and the metaphor is always in connection between ourselves, so everyone, and our inner side, and but also like the whole society that's surrounding us, because we felt this need of talking about this, because we wanted to represent the fact that we have we are in a moment in which technology, evolution, and all the cultural changes that are happening are really are really fast, and as it cyclically happens in history, it's very easy that when all these changes happen, people starts being afraid and starts being intolerant, or just getting lost and totally forgetting about what are the important things in life that usually are very simple things, very concrete things. So we believe it's very important not to forget about those things, about those values that are the values that symbolically the king believes in. And we're talking about justice, we're talking about integrity, and we're talking about being true. And today, there's a lot of fake, a lot of superficiality out there. So the message we wanted to send is, okay, even if you feel that sometimes you're surrounded by all this fake, still you have this king inside, this symbolic king, and you can choose for the king. You can choose for the part of yourself that is responsible, that is able to remember and to fight for the things that actually are the true things, the important things.
Now, in terms of your tour, early next month you'll be beginning your North American tour, joined by some really good bands, Carrick Angren and Abigail Williams. How do you prepare to play newly released music? Because there's obviously the learning to play it, practicing, but there's also sort of the fact that it's new. People are only just listening to it. Is there any sort of preparation that goes mentally in the fact that this is new and people have to respond to it in different ways?
Oh, well, that's something that at this point we've been doing it for a while. So the approach, the right approach, at least for ourselves, what we have been experiencing during these years, it's just being very, very concentrated on the music. Every single member in the band, of course, has to do a lot of work on himself, because otherwise it's never going to work when you go with the rehearsal. So we try to take our time to work on the song, everyone for his role in the music, in the band. And then we just spend a lot of time on the rehearsal. So for which regards the show, of course, we do a lot of meetings and we decide all the things that are connected also to the image and to the theatrical aspect of our show that actually is pretty important. It's very important. So we every time we try to imagine different things that we can do on stage and how to also build up a set list that can actually work as if it was an album, because that's a very important side, especially of the music that we do. There's so many things going on that you really have, exactly when you're writing an album and putting the songs in the album, you really have to find a good balance between the songs and also leave the right space for speeches sometimes, or for other kind of stuff that is happening between the songs. So that's actually a very, very complex work. But we're getting skilled on that, so it's becoming, I don't want to say more easy, but for sure it's a little bit more smooth than before, because we know each other and we really know how to move on stage and to we understand each other very, very quickly. So that's the very hard part. It's really it sounds strange, but the hardest part is to decide and define the set list for the show, because it's very easy to be too oppressive in some parts, or maybe to have songs that are maybe too similar, talking about, for example, the rhythm or tempo. So we really work a lot on building up the set list, especially because in our set list, if you've seen our shows, it's all connected with orchestrations, intros, outros. There's never a part in which we simply stop. So there's always something going on, and that's the hard part, because sometimes to make everything match is not easy. But besides that, it's all about being concentrating and try to rehearsal as much as possible, because we really care about growing up on that side. Every tour we do, and always proposing something new, and always growing on the show and getting better and better. We never settle with ourselves.
Finally, for those people who might not listen to metal music, they would probably think that it's an odd choice to put classical music in death metal, and not realise that it goes so well like you demonstrate. How do you explain the way it manages to fit together, when I think a lot of people would intuitively think they're opposite and possibly incompatible?
Well, it's actually it's been everything has been about experimenting since the beginning. Because one thing that sometimes we don't get when we approach music in general is that I believe that there is no harmonic progression or melody or rhythm that actually cannot match with each other. And we had examples in history continuously, because continuously in the history of music there has been bands defining a new style, and then other bands mixing up styles that you never imagined that could be, working together, but then it happened. And that is because, of course, music, as everything else, has a lot of rules. And these rules are, simply connected to the feeling that certain rhythms or progressions give you when you listen to them. And that also means that when you have to match two different styles, you really have to work on details to understand which is the mechanism. I mean, what I mean is that, for example, now when we approach on the composition, we have learned some of the rules that we've been defining, experimenting during the years, that really are the rules of Fleshgod Apocalypse music, meaning that there are certain things that work when you mix those two styles, and there are certain things that just don't work. And it's all about researching and finding which rhythms and, which tempos and which kind of progression can work together on that kind of part or on other kind of parts, or how the drums have to behave to make it work. So it's really like, it's like a science, actually. You just have to spend a lot of time in understanding how these two different sides of our music, but actually there are like thousands, because everything you do, has this characteristic, and slowly put the pieces together and understand how it could work. So at the beginning, I remember that we've been experimenting a lot, and many things that we were trying just didn't work. So, but the more we went on, and the more we had the chance to understand, okay, this works, but it has to be like this or that. And we slowly gave, a shape to our music. So I really believe that there is no music that actually cannot be mixed with any other music, because we're always talking about notes and rhythms. So, the possibilities are infinite, and it's just a matter of spending time on really understanding what actually works. And when something works, it's so evident since the beginning, because you just hear it, because that's the good thing about music, and also the hard part of music, is that it is like an architecture of feelings. You have to build up a feeling, and to do that, you have actually notes that actually is math. So you just have to think in a very rational way, but also listen to what your heart says to understand what is right and what is not.
Fleshgod Apocalypse will be releasing their fourth album, King, on February 5th. Tommaso, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.